God says that tithing is not hard. What? You've got to be kidding me. When you turn to Isaiah 43:23, God tells Israel, I have not burdened you with offerings, nor wearied you with incense. Think about that for a moment. God was telling Israel, I have not put on a burden on you that you can't handle. I have not wore you out or wearied you with incense and offerings and sacrifices and whatnot. Basically, what I have asked from you is very doable and is very reasonable. You see, I have provided all of your resources, and then from the extra, from the above and beyond, that's where I have required my sacrifices and offerings from. Now, this made a lot more sense to me this year because I have fallen in love with gardening. So gardening is hard work in some areas, but once gardening is on autopilot, it's not really hard at all. So I spent 2 or 3 days laboring very intensely over the soil, turning it and plowing the ground and putting a fence around this so that the wildlife didn't get into my garden. But then I put some seed in the ground, and other than putting a little bit of water on there, which is kind of therapeutic and relaxing, and to walk out there and spray this stuff with water, not even every day, but it's kind of really therapeutic and relaxing to let the sun come down on the ground and then for the ground to produce fruit free of charge again and again and again. In fact, I've got 2 square foot of squash that has now turned into about 100 square foot of squash, and it's still growing. I have squash coming out left and right, so much so that I think I could start a farm and sell it and make a living off of it. And I've never even fertilized the stuff. So if out of all of this abundance that's just overflowing out of the ground, if God wanted some of it, it wouldn't really be a burden to give him some of it. If you think about a farmer, yes, there is the hard work of rounding up your cattle, of giving your cattle shots, of putting them in a foreclosure, of checking on them when they're sick, of helping birth them. But most of the time, cattle are out there eating grass. God is sustaining them, and they multiply on their own. And any kind of growth that comes out of that, if God asks for a portion of that growth, it's really not a burden. So when you think about the natural things like gardening and the productivity of animals, if God says, hey, I'm not requiring that much of you to give back to me how I have abundantly blessed you, it's not really wearying to you, then it makes a lot of sense in that context. But for some reason, when we get to the New Testament church, people think that working a job is different and that God didn't give them that job and that he's not providing the resources that keeps their job active and alive, and that all of this is coming by his hand. And so when he asks for 10% to honor him with, that it's really not that much of a burden. I challenge you that the reason that tithing might feel like an intense burden is because your necessities are supplied, but beyond your necessities now you are indulging your flesh, which can never be satisfied. Thus you will always be in a shortage. You will always be short of being able to get everything that you crave, want, and desire because it's so fleshly. When you begin to let go of your resources and you begin to allow God to be honored with the 10% that he's asked as a starting point, you will see that your needs have been provided, that you are able to give and to give freely, and that you still have extra. God is amazing. He has said, I have not burdened you. I have not wearied you with any kind of sacrifices or offerings, but you're wearing me out with your sin. I challenge you today to get your heart right, to begin to give to the Lord so that he can open your eyes so that you can see the spiritual abundance that he has already blessed you with.